Right now, you are being robbed. You can't hear sirens, you won't see police tape. But every second you watch this, your life's work is being quietly siphoned away. You feel it at the grocery store. You feel it looking at house prices that defy gravity. They tell you this is just the economy, like the weather, random, unpredictable. They are lying. The storm isn't random, it is man made. There is a hidden mechanism designed nearly 3 centuries ago not to create wealth, but to redistribute it from your savings account into the pockets of the ultra wealthy. If you're tired of playing a rigged game, you need to see the rulebook. Because once you understand the Cantillon Effect, you won't just stop the bleeding, you'll learn how to profit from the system. This is Pengo. Pengo follows the rules. He wakes up, catches fish, and saves the surplus for his family. He believes in a simple logic. If he saves 10 fish today, he has 10 fish to spend tomorrow. But Pengo is being tricked. He doesn't realize that while his number of fish stays the same, their size is shrinking. He isn't losing his savings to a thief he can see. He is losing their power. He did the work. But the reward changed while he was sleeping. Before we explain how they shrunk the fish, a quick disclaimer. Pengo is an illustration, not financial advice. The mechanism, the waterfall, and the great betrayal. So, who was Richard Cantillon? He was an Irish-French economist writing in the 1700s, long before the Federal Reserve or digital trading apps existed. He noticed something that everyone else missed. He realized that money is not neutral. Most people think that if you double the amount of money in a country, everything just costs twice as much, and it all balances out. Cantillon said, "No, the path matters." He discovered that where the money enters the economy determines who wins and who loses. Think of the economy like a giant tiered champagne tower or a cascading waterfall. When the government, or in our modern case, the central bank, decides to inject liquidity, a fancy word for printing money, they don't hire a helicopter and drop cash over your neighborhood. They don't deposit an extra $10,000 into Pengo's checking account. Instead, they pour that water at the very top of the waterfall. The new money flows directly into the financial sector. It goes to the primary dealers, the massive banks like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup. These institutions get access to billions, sometimes trillions of dollars at near zero interest rates. Now pause and think about this. At the exact moment this money is created, prices in the real world haven't changed yet. A gallon of milk is still $4. A house is still $300,000. The water is at the top of the waterfall, but the ground below is still dry. This momentary gap, this delay, is where the theft happens. Let's go back to Pengo. Imagine the central colony prints 1 million new fish claims. They hand these claims to the biggest, strongest sea lions at the top of the food chain. Now, these sea lions are smart. They know that eventually all these extra claims will make fish more expensive. So, what do? Do they wait? No. They spend the money immediately. They use their fresh, potent currency to buy up all the tangible assets they can find. They buy the prime fishing spots. They buy the icebergs. They buy the rights to the krill. They buy assets before the inflation hits. In the human world, this is exactly what happened in 2020. While the world was locked down, the Federal Reserve printed roughly 40% of all US dollars in existence. This money flooded into the banks. The banks and hedge funds didn't use this money to help average people pay rent. They used it to bid up the price of assets. They bought stocks, causing the S&P 500 to hit all-time highs while the actual economy was closed. They bought single-family homes by the thousands, turning neighborhoods into rental portfolios. By the time this money starts to trickle down the waterfall to the next tier, to the corporations, the tech startups, the luxury service providers, prices are already moving up. But they are still ahead of the curve. They enjoy a boom, they feel wealthy, and then, finally, the water reaches the bottom of the waterfall. It reaches you. It reaches Pengo. But by the time the money reaches your wages, the game is already over. The new money has circulated through the system, bidding up the price of everything along the way. When the money finally lands in your pocket, maybe as a slight cost of living adjustment or a stimulus check, it has lost its potency. It's diluted. This is the cruelty of the Cantillon Effect. The early receivers of new money, the rich, get to buy assets at yesterday's prices with today's printed money. The late receivers, the working class, are forced to buy goods at tomorrow's inflated prices with yesterday's stagnant wages. Let's look at the damage. Between 2008 and 2024, the wealth of the top 0.1% didn't just grow, it exploded. We are talking about a divergence so massive, it looks like a glitch in the matrix. Why? Because they own the assets that inflated. Meanwhile, real wages for the bottom 90% have barely budged when adjusted for the actual cost of living. Housing, food, energy. Pengo is swimming harder than ever. He's catching more fish than his grandfather did, but he can't afford the same iceberg his grandfather bought on a single income. And he's wondering, am I bad at being a penguin? Am I just lazy? This brings us to the most infuriating part of the mechanism, the blame game. Because the Cantillon effect is invisible to the naked eye, the pain it causes gets blamed on everything else. The media tells you it's supply chain issues. They tell you it's corporate greed. And then they turn the camera on you. They tell you that if you just skipped the avocado toast, if you just brewed coffee at home, you could afford that $800,000 starter home. It is gaslighting on a macroeconomic scale. The reality is that your personal spending habits are mathematically irrelevant compared to the trillions of dollars of dilution flooding the system from the top. You are not poor because you bought a latte. You are feeling poor because the currency you work for is being devalued to bail out the people who own the system. It is an invisible transfer of wealth. Every time the printer goes brrr, purchasing power is telepathically stripped from your savings account and deposited into the asset portfolios of the wealthy. It is a tax that no one voted for, no Congress passed, and no one signed up to pay. So when you see the stock market hitting record highs while homelessness increases, that is not a contradiction. That is the Cantillon effect working exactly as designed. The system isn't broken. It is fixed. It is fixed in favor of those closest to the printer. Pengo can save all the fish he wants, but if the central colony keeps printing fish claims, his savings will rot before he can spend them. He is playing a game where the goalposts aren't just moving, they are being strapped to a rocket ship. But here's where the story shifts. Because now that you see the strings, now that you understand the waterfall, you have a choice. You can stay at the bottom, getting wet with diluted money, or you can learn how to climb. You can't stop the printer, but you can position yourself to not get crushed by it. Escaping the avalanche and flipping the script. So, what is the answer? When people first learn about the Cantillon effect, the natural reaction is despair. You feel small. You feel like a pawn on a chessboard played by giants. You might want to scream at the TV, protest the Federal Reserve, or just give up and accept that you will own nothing and be happy. But panicking is the worst response. And resignation? That is exactly what the system wants. They want you to stay on the hamster wheel, working harder for money that is worth less, blaming yourself for not running fast enough. You have to stop playing their game by their rules. You need to flip the script. The Cantillon effect is a powerful wind blowing against you, but if you know how to set your sails, that same wind can push you forward. The wealthy don't hate inflation, they love it. Why? Because they know how to position themselves on the right side of the equation. And for the first time in history, thanks to technology and access to information, you can do the same. You don't need to be a billionaire to start thinking like one. The first step is a mental detox. We are raised to believe that cash is king. We are taught that saving money in a bank account is the ultimate act of responsibility. In a non-rigged system, that would be true. But in a Cantillon system, cash is trash. Holding large amounts of cash is like trying to carry water in a bucket full of holes. You are leaking purchasing power every single day. You have to stop viewing money as a store of value and start viewing it for what it really is, a medium of exchange. It is a hot potato. You get it, and you want to get rid of it. But, and this is the key, you don't get rid of it by spending it on liabilities like new phones, fast fashion, or depreciating cars. That's how you stay poor. You get rid of it by exchanging it for hard assets. Pengo realized that saving fish claims was a trap because the central colony could print infinite claims, but they couldn't print infinite rocks. They couldn't print infinite prime fishing spots. You need to identify things that cannot be printed: real estate, gold, equities, ownership in profitable companies, Bitcoin, mathematical scarcity. These are assets. When the money supply expands, the value of these assets rises in nominal terms. You aren't getting richer necessarily. Your life raft is just rising with the tide while the swimmers, cash savers, drown. The Cantillon Effect rewards those who own and punishes those who labor. This is a hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth. If your only income comes from trading your time for money, a salary, you are always the last person to touch the new money. You are at the bottom of the waterfall. To move up the waterfall, you must own equity. This doesn't mean you quit your job tomorrow. It means you change where your surplus energy goes. Instead of saving for a rainy day in a savings account, yielding 0.01%, you start acquiring pieces of the machine. When you buy a stock, you are buying a piece of a company that will raise its prices when inflation hits. When you buy real estate, you are buying an asset that acts as a hedge against the devaluing dollar. You are essentially shorting the currency. The wealthy borrow money, which is losing value, to buy assets, which are gaining value. That is the cheat code. While we can't all get billion-dollar loans like the banks, we can adopt the mindset, accumulate scarcity. In a world of infinite paper, scarcity is the only sanctuary. This brings us to the final and most important point, education. The reason the Cantillon effect has worked for 270 years is that it is complex. It's boring. It's designed to make your eyes glaze over. The bankers count on your ignorance. They count on you fighting culture wars while they fight a class war. Pengo stopped complaining about the melting ice. He studied the thermodynamics. By watching this video, you are already in the top 1% of people who understand how the machine works. That awareness is your weapon. When you understand that inflation is a policy choice, not an accident, you stop waiting for the government to save you. You start building your own arc. You realize that volatility in the markets isn't risk. It's the market trying to price in the devaluation of your money. You stop looking at the price of a house and thinking, that's expensive. You start thinking, no, the dollar is just weak. This shift in perspective changes everything. It changes how you vote, how you spend, and how you plan for the future. You move from being a victim of the Cantillon effect to a beneficiary of asset inflation. The game is rigged. It always has been. From Richard Cantillon in 1755 to the Federal Reserve in 2024, the mechanism remains the same. The closer you are to the printer, the more you win. You can't turn off the printer. You can't dry up the waterfall, but you don't have to drown in it. You can learn to swim upstream. You can claim your assets. You can protect your family's future by understanding the difference between money and wealth. Money is what they print. Wealth is what you own. Now, I want to hear from you. Look around your own life. Where have you felt the invisible thief the most? Is it the grocery bill, the rent, or the dream of home ownership fading away? Let me know in the comments below. I read them and I want to know your story. If you want to continue seeing the hidden architecture of the financial system, the things they definitely didn't teach you in school, make sure you are subscribed and have that bell turned on. We are going to keep peeling back the layers one by one. This is Pengo Economy. Don't let your ice melt. I'll see you in the next one.